Hello and welcome back to another getting dark earlier and earlier evening here in London, and welcome to n equals 41 of these videos. And what I want to do is continue on from the previous one, which was n equals 40, and what I'd like to do is just finish off these remaining 3 view models to do with maps. So we've done first and second view for Android, and the next thing we wanted to do was third view. And third view model, if you can remember back, was all about a collection of zombies. So we want to do the same thing in Android as we did in iOS for collections. So to do that, we're going to do exactly the same sort of thing as we did in iOS, which is that we want to create some kind of collection object that can bind to the observable collection in the view. So this object in the view will be bound to the view model, and it'll take charge of whenever the observable collection says I've added a zombie, it'll add one to the map. Whenever it says it's removed a zombie, it'll remove one from the map. So let's kick into that, and let's go straight to second view. And what we'll do is we'll copy what's there to a third one, and we'll do the same thing with the resources, just because you know the layout's there. So there's our second view, and we'll copy it to third. And I think in this case we don't really need to do much else to that XML. Maybe we can remove the, just wait for the designer to load. Maybe we can remove this location at the top because we don't need it this time. So let's go back to the C# and let's change our every instance of second to third here. Oops, wrong way around. Every instance of second will change to third in this file. Right, so that gives us our basic thing. But now instead of having a single option, we want to have a set of them. So let's create this set. Let's go for it. So we've still got our marker wrapper down here, which will come in handy. But what we also want is we want a public class, which is going to be a marker set. And what we know is that we want this public class to have an I enumerable, which is actually going to, actually for us right now, we know that this could be a collection. It could actually be bound to an observable collection. But let's just stick with I enumerable. Let's keep it at its base level. And just to keep the pattern that we normally have, we'll call that item source, like that. And then what we want to do is when the item source gets set on us, we want to bind to it if it's a collection. So I'll just use resharper to put that into a separate private variable. And I'll test first. So if item source equals value, then return, because there's no point in updating something that's already there. Sorry about the reminder there. And what I'll do instead is I will start binding to this. So let's use weak references, because we like using weak references for collections. And so let's do a var notify equals, and what we'll do is item source as a I notify collection changed. And you can copy and paste this code from any of the other list classes that we've got. But I'll just do it from first principles here, just so that we can work it through. And then if, so actually we need to do this beforehand. This is the oh no, we'll just free it up. I mean, yeah, ignore that. And if notify is not null, then what we'll do is notify dot, and what we can do is there's a helper method called weak subscribe, and what we can do is we can subscribe onto that as, you know, handle the changed message. So that gives us a little hint to create those things from resharper, so that's handy. And what we want to do is we want to store that in a token. So let's just do it. Token equals that. And that then means hopefully here that we can complete the loop with private iDisposable token. And then what we can do is whenever we get set, if we've already got a token, then what we'll do That's still an old C habit of mine. I still want to do it without the just want to test token for a boolean. But there is a token.dispose and token equals null. So hopefully you can see the pattern we've got there. And then the very last thing we'll do is here we'll do reload all. So in reload all, what we want to do is if we've got any markers, we want to remove them. And if we and then we want to add all. So let's just do that. Remove all. So we're going to need a dictionary or a set of some description of markers. So whoops. Let's just do that. So we're going to have a set. Let's do it as a dictionary because a dictionary is quite handy for us to be able to look these things. Oh, let's just do it as a list. List of, so these are going to be the marker wrappers that we had before. Small change. So this is going to be our marker wrappers. And let's keep that as a permanent list. Equals new list marker wrapper. So we'll make that read only. And what we'll do is we also in this marker set we want to have a reference to our map view. So let's do that. So private map view underscore map view. So we'd like to have that initialized from a constructor. So when we've done that, what we can do in removal is here we can remove marker. Is there a remove marker or is it a dot map? Okay, so what's a dot map? It's a map we wanted, not a just see what that is. What is a map? It's a map view.map. I'm just trying to find out what type of object this is. That's all I'm doing here. Var s equals. If I could type, I'd find it out. So in this case, it is a Google map. So a Google map is actually what we wanted here. So let's just do that. This is actually going to be a Google map. Right, so at this point we've got our map view, which has probably got the wrong name, so I'll just call it an underscore map. Right, so there's our map at last. So now what we should be able to do to our map is we should be able to remove markers. No, delete marker. Is it the markers themselves? Let's just check. So if we have a marker, okay, so it's actually the markers themselves that we can do it on. So that's easy. What we'll do is for each var, and so this is going to be our list of marker wrappers. Then what we want to do is we want to remove it. So what we'll do is marker wrapper dot remove. Obviously we'll have to marshal that on to the actual marker. So I'll create that method. And that method is going to do underscore marker dot remove. Cool, that's done. And then what we'll do when we've done that is underscore marker wrappers dot clear. So that will just free our list. So that's remove all done. Now let's do add all. And so for add all, what we'll do is for each var, so it's going to be an item source. Each var, this is a zombie, which we used that for before. So for each zombie and item source. And what we can actually do is we can, so these are going to be untyped to start with, but we know what they're going to be. So what we can do is var zombie equals, and this is going to be a zombie or from the item. And then what we can do is that we can actually use that. So now we can do a create marker. So really what we want to start doing here is we want to start using these zombies. So let's just go down to our marker wrapper. And what we should probably do is, as well as actually marshalling in the marker, we should probably marshal in the zombie as well. So let's do that. And I'm going kind of, very incremental here in terms of the way I'm coding. But hopefully you can just follow the kind of thing I'm doing. All I'm doing is giving my views some little information about the object that's being given to them. So that's just going to allow us to create a marker wrapper now, which is going to take a zombie and a marker. You could probably create the marker inside there, but for now we'll keep it outside. So what we want to do is we want to create a marker, and we had that code already, using this marker option. So let's do that. So we don't need that anymore, or we could probably take a bit more code. So let me just take that. And so what we can do now is here in add all, we can create this code which is going to create an options, and for each options we're going to do this zombie. We don't really need a title, but let's use one. Let's set that to zombie.name. And then options.draggable, we don't really want to be free, so then we have a marker, and this is _map.add marker. Yeah, you may need to go back as you're watching this and watching me code all sorts of things. You may want to go back and go, oh, and recover it, but that's all right. You can do that and go back to n equals 40 and see what I'm manipulating. So here we create our marker wrapper, and that's just going to go into marker and zombie. Okay, so there's one thing that's not going on there, which is we're not really binding to the zombie, but we can do that inside our marker wrapper, which really is a zombie wrapper. So let's do it. Let's call it a zombie wrapper. And so then we can just do our marker wrappers dot add marker wrapper. So that's done. Right, so with that done, we should probably do a little, refactoring here. So let's just create that out into its own method, which is going to be called. Actually, we can even create the last line as well. So let's take all of that, and we'll call that add zombie. Yeah, and we could probably do a remove zombie as well, but for now we'll just do an add zombie. So that can be reusable later. Right, so that's our add all done. And that's our removal. I'm not sure why that's okay. It's just a syntaxing issue. So that should be all right. And then what we've got is we've got most of our method done. We just want to actually do the last bit, which is the handle change message. So when you get this change message through, what you're going to get is you're going to get this argument. And this argument, if we switch on it, has got a parameter in here called action. And that's what we're going to use. So again, I'm going to use resharper just to generate the switch labels. And you can see what we get is we get an add, remove, replace, move, reset. So we don't really care about the move here because we're not really using it. Yeah, we could, throw a new exception saying, zombies should not be moved. We don't care about, why is that underlined? Just because it's got a problem. So you could probably, just for clarity, actually just do MVX exception, and then it'll be a bit safer. So that's should not be moved. Let's also do that for replace. We don't really care about that. But we do care about reset. And for reset, what we know is we've already got a reload all, which we can use. And we do care about the add and remove. So what we'll do is if we get an add, then what we'll do is for each var, and this is going to be var zombie, and so the thing that it's going to be in is going to be in the argument, so e new items. And what we'll have to do is that's going to be an item, and we'll have to cast it. So var item. You can probably cast it by using the right type here in the for each, but I'm not into that kind of for each, so I don't do it that way. Just me. So this is going to be var zombie equals zombie of item. And what you can then do is you're going to say, well, I'm going to add that zombie. So add zombie, zombie. That's already set up for us. And to do the remove, okay, so what we're going to do here is what you really care about is you care about the dot old items. Yeah, and so what you can do here is you can try and remove it. So let's just remove it by adding a remove zombie method. And what we'll have to do is find it. And what we'll do is we'll look through and we'll find var var marker equals, and what we'll do here is we'll go through our list, and it's our marker wrappers dot first or default. Okay, I need to bring in link in order to find this. It's the first or default zombie marker, so wrapper, sorry, where it's got the right zombie. So mw dot zombie equals zombie. So we'll need to find that. If marker equals null, that is technically an exception, because you know they should never be removing something we haven't added to our list. So I'll do it. Zombie not found. Otherwise, what I can do is marker wrappers dot remove marker. Okay, I should probably rename that to marker wrapper, zombie wrapper, just so it can be found. And you can see what we haven't got here is we haven't exposed the zombie, so create the property zombie, and that is just going to expose the internal variable. Right, so all we've done, just to recap a little bit here, is we've created this collection object, this marker set in the view side. And all that this is doing is it's providing item source for binding, and it's providing some methods to remove all, to add individual zombies, to remove all the zombies, to handle some of these change notifications we'll get, to throw exceptions for some we aren't expecting, and then to remove a single zombie. There's just one thing I think I didn't do very well here, which is that actually in the case of the add all, I think item source could be null. So what I'll do is if item source equals null, then I'll just return. So that's just a little bit of protection there. And I wonder if the same is for removal. Let me check. No, removal goes through marker wrappers, so that's safe. Okay, so that should be fine. Those are private methods. There's one more thing that we haven't really talked about as much, which was this zombie wrapper class. And this zombie wrapper at the moment isn't really listening for changes in zombie, so we need to do that a little bit. So what I'm going to do again is use weak references. Weak references mean that the view can always have a strong reference to its view model. Yeah, so it can always hold the view model in memory. But the other way around is always weak references. So if you're subscribing to an event on your view model, then the view model shouldn't be strong referencing back to you. It should always be weak referencing, and it just means that the view can disappear more easily. It's not as big a problem in Android as it is in iOS. In iOS, there are some fairly complicated things that go on with the managed memory on the C# side and the Objective-C memory on the iOS side, which mean that it's really important you think about these weak references. Okay, so with that done, let me just do this. So we're going to weak subscribe here, and really we just care about whether or not the location changes. So I'm going to just do that, and then what I can do is on location changed, I'm just going to do it. And in fact, it's a location. So I'm going to just weak subscribe to that one property changed, and when I get that property changed, what's it saying? It's getting confusion between two different types of things. So let's quickly see whether or not we can tidy that up. Let me do so this is going to be weak subscribe to. So let me just quickly check that error message again. So the error message is it's trying to decide between a string and an event handler and a string and a func and an event handler. So it shouldn't be too hard to do that, because no, it's trying to work out whether that second thing is a func. I can't quite see how that is having that problem at the moment. It doesn't look like an expression system func. Okay, let me come out of this, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to subscribe to all messages. That's the easy way out. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to store the token that comes back. So that's a disposable token underscore token equals that. And then what that means in here, sorry about the slight confusion there, is I will need to test for if e property name, e.property name not equal to, and that's going to be location, then I don't care, so I'm just going to return. Otherwise what I'm going to do is I'm going to use location. So let's just do that. And what I want to do is I would like here to, I don't need this reverse positioning anymore. I just need to set my position. So let's do it. And what I'm going to do is position equals, and this is going to be position equals, and so we need to use converter for this, so I can do that. I'll do it in line for now. We had a lat long converter. Oh, let's just do it. New lat long, and this is going to be underscore zombie dot location dot lat and underscore zombie dot location dot long. Could have used the value converter, could have used binding in here, but for now I'm just quickly pushing this across. So that's just missing a return text. Okay, so you can see all those things there. Because we've now got this disposable, perhaps we should make our zombie wrapper disposable too. So let's do that. iDisposable. And I'll just do this the quick and dirty way, if you like, of implementing iDisposable. And here what I'll do is zombie.dispose. It's not zombie.dispose, it's token.dispose, sorry. So that gets rid of our disposable. Really, you should do the proper pattern, but I'm not going to inherit. Just to prove I'm not going to inherit from it, I'll do sealed. So that should give us our token, and now we've got disposable zombie wrappers. What that means is whenever we remove a zombie, we should also take that zombie wrapper and dispose it. And so really we should probably do the same thing in our removal method, wherever that was. Okay, so you can see we've built up a few classes here. It didn't take too long to code them, and these are kind of reusable. These are generic things which really could be reused for lots of maps. In the same way as we did when we did the iOS, we actually pulled in a generic kind of object. And what we can now do with this market set is we can have an instance of it in our view. So let's do that. Instead of this zombie wrapper, we're going to have a market set. I'm going to call it a zombie set. I'm going to have a zombie set. It's actually a zombie marker set, so let's call it that. So we're going to have a zombie marker set. And obviously that's going to be called zombies. Zombie markers. Let's really try and keep this. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an instance of this down here. Zombie markers equals new zombie marker set. It does require the map, so we're just going to do it here when we get hold of the map fragment. And then the very last thing we're going to do is we're going to bind it. So let's just do that. So we've got our zombie markers, and we're going to bind it, and it's for its item source. We're going to bind it to the view models zombies. And what did we call them? We have changed that. It was a YARP. For those of you who don't remember, it was a YARP of zombies. And we don't need to apply a conversion here. And now, in theory, that should just display our zombies and it should animate them. Should we see whether or not that works? Okay, so let's build this, and assuming it builds, I'll then switch over to the Android tablet, and we'll see whether or not that actually runs. Build started still. Just waiting for it. Okay, it looks like it succeeded. Excellent. So I'll come out of there, and what I'll do is, yeah, what I'll do is just show it on the tablet. Okay, so over on the tablet, this is now the app. So I'm going to press 3 and see whether it works. And obviously we still haven't got any centering map. So here is a bit of it. Now, is this zombie moving at all? Is it doing anything exciting? Will we get more than one zombie on the map is the question. So let's zoom in as much as we can and keep it there. It does appear that zombie's moving, but we don't have more than one of them yet. Let's just see. Okay, so that zombie is definitely moving, but do we get more than one? And it is a probability thing. Okay, so it would look like our... Oh no, here's a second zombie. So you can see we do now have multiple zombies. So if we keep waiting and the probabilities are in our favour, then hopefully we'll see multiple zombies on the map. Okay, so that's our third demo up and running, and that's a collection. Okay, that seems to be working fair enough. We've got 4 now, and I will head back to the PC. Okay, so hopefully you could see that was working there, and that we had our zombies up and running. Amazingly, a demo worked first time. So that is our third view up and running. Let's check out what our fourth view was. And our fourth view was all about, can we control the center of the map using a couple of text boxes. So this should be a good quick little demo for us. So what I'll do is I'll take third view and I'll copy it across and call it fourth. And that'll open up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a linear layout at the top of this. Linear layout. And what I'm going to do is just put in some text boxes and a button. And so for height, I want to wrap my content. Oops, linear layout. And hopefully I've got that right. So what we should be able to do is in here put some text boxes in, some edit text. Oops. Edit text. And what I'll do is I will just give them a width of 0 dp. And I will then give them a weight of 1. Which basically means I should be able to get, 3 controls equally distance across here. If I could spell weight, it would anyway. So there is our edit text. And that obviously is going to need a terminator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bind that using our normal binding of mvx bind equals, and I'm going to bind that to the property in our fourth view model that was lat. I should probably set the keyboard type and all sorts of other things here to make it a nicer demo, but for now I'll just do that. I can't remember quite what it is that I have to do to set that up to be a numeric input. So we'll have another one which is going to bind to long, except I did forget that actually I want to do text to lat, text to long. And then finally I also want a button. So this button is going to have exactly the same sort of properties. Whoops. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to bind the click to the update center command to do that. And I should just give this some text. Android text equals go. And just to give it a bit more fun, I'll also do a text size equals, and I'll make this quite big, I'll make it 50 dp, just so that we can see it, because from the demos that I did on n equals 40, I definitely made text too small. So that's what it looks like. Hopefully if we see it here, you can see there's a text box, and a square. They're equally spaced because of that weighting. And then underneath we have this map. So that's cool. So let me close that fourth view, get it out the way. And what I'd then like to do is in third view, which one shall I copy? I'll copy first view as a basic starting place. And I'll change this to a third view. Sorry, a fourth view. We're almost there. And what I'd like to do for fourth view is I would like to, again, just replace the word first here with fourth. And then what I need to do is I'm no longer going to have any markers in this one. So I don't need any of these things. Instead, what I want to do is I want to somehow bind the center of the map to the object. This, what was it called? A location on our view model. Yeah, so this is what we're going to update, location, and I want to bind that object. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little nested class here, and I'll call it public class center helper. And again, what I quite like to do in this little class is I quite like to store a reference to the map. So I will have a private Google map, I think we called it, _map, and I'll initialize that from the constructor. And what I'd also like to do then is I'd like to have a property on here called public. And for this I may as well take advantage of our location to lat long. So what I'm going to do is a lat long, which is going to be called center. And in the get of that, all I'm going to do is I'm going to return _map dot, is there a center there already? Get. It may be camera position dot. Somewhere here is going to be it. No, it's not camera position. It is map dot. Might be in projection. It's not in get. Is it in projection? Is it? No, projection's more projection dot visible region dot. You might be able to get it from there. There must be an easier way other than using the lat long bounds dot center. Okay, we can do that. Doesn't feel like that's the easiest way to get hold of the center of the map. There must be another way. And then what I'll also do is when you do a set, what we want to do is actually set the position. So we want to set, there has to be a way of setting its position. Let me just look up online briefly, hang on one moment. So by the magic of Stack Overflow and a quick search for Android Google Maps Set Center, thank you very much to Commonsware, who is brilliant for answers on Stack Overflow. Well deserving of 322. Here's a bit of code that will hopefully update our location with some nice animations. I'm just going to do that, and I will copy, and I'll pull this back to my project. And so what I can then do is just use that code. Obviously there's a new lat long there that I'm going to need to use, and let's just do this. So this is going to be var center equals, and we're actually going to get past it, so we don't really need this. So what we're going to do is camera update factory. I think it's just translating this into thing, into C#. Okay, so let's just take a camera update factory dot new lat long, and this is going to be value. And we don't really need to do the zoom to, so I'm not going to do that, and then I'll just do the move camera. So that's the way you do it. You do have to look up some of these things. You can't hold everything in your mind at one point. And that's how we're going to bind our center. And so what we should then be able to do, hopefully, is just back on the class. This is now finished. What we should be able to do is we should be able to, we no longer need our markers in here. What we need is a center helper called center helper. And what we'll do is once we've got our map fragment, we can create it. So center helper equals new center helper, which we pass in map fragment.map. And then what we should be able to do is we're going to bind center helper. We're going to bind its center, which is what I must have called its method down here, center. And we're going to bind it to the location on the view model. And we're going to provide this value converter that we've been using since, n equals 40 part 1. So that in theory should allow us to actually do it. Let's deploy it to the device and see whether or not it runs. So I'll hit debug start new, see if it builds. And assuming it does, then I'll switch to the other camera. Just waiting for it. listening to the fan get louder. Okay, it seemed to be successful, so it's deploying. So we're back on the thing. Let's see whether item 4 now works for us. So we've got our map up. It doesn't look like, I don't know whether 00 is actually correct, so I'm not sure that's bound correctly. I may have to check trace, but let's just try it. If we zoom to 51 and 0 and hit go, then the map did move. So let's try if we change that to minus 30. I'll just get rid of the keyboard and then hit go. Does the map move? Yeah, so that's definitely binding. And that seems to be quite reasonable in terms of the way that it works. Let's just prove that if we change this to a totally different number. So let's come down to a minus 51 and a plus 60, say. Then we hit go. Does it move? Yes. Okay, so there's our two-way binding, or our one-way binding, sorry, on location. And you know, we seem to have lat and long working, so we can bind the zoom. So let's go on to n equals 5 and see if we can get that working. Sorry, the fifth part of this. So that all works, which is remarkable because generally things don't work first time in these videos. So hopefully I'm not speaking too soon. So let's just do a fifth view model now. And the fifth view model, if you remember, was one where the location of the map got updated as we scrolled the UI view. So that's what we're going to do. And what I'd like to do for this is I'd just like to take a slightly different approach. And what I'd like to do is show that, you know, at the moment we've always been using a map fragment, as you can see in our fragments. We've always just been using a support map fragment straight off the shelf from Google, and we haven't really been doing any binding inside the fragment. We've just been using it as kind of an object within our activity. What you can do is you can actually create a bindable fragment in the same way as, I can't remember what number it was, 23 or something, or 26, where we did fragging and we showed that, you know, you can create these fragments and bind things within them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we create a bindable fragment from a support map fragment. And basically to do that, what you have to do is you do have to go to, let me just quickly find it, you do have to go to the existing repo, and you do have to pull the information back. So that probably didn't make much sense, that sentence. What you have to do is you have to see how we adapt other fragments to do it. And so if you take a look in the fragging source code, and you can see what we do to take a fragment and adapt it is we first of all inherit and we implement something called IMVX event source fragment. So I'll just take hold of this and do the same thing. Control C. And what I can then do is use that in my code. So what I'm going to do is I will create a new class here. And what I can do in class 1 is I can just import these things, obviously. But what we really need to do here is we actually want to use the support map fragment. So I'm going to inherit from a support map fragment. And I'm going to call this an MVX event source fragment. So this is going to be an MVX event source map fragment, is what I'm going to call it. It's going to ask me to import a few more things. And then when I've done that, you can see, you know, it was a bit of cut and paste, but it mainly uses extension methods, so it's not a lot. And you can see, I hope, that it just, you know, all ties in and just works. And then the next thing we actually do is to go to add the next little stage of binding. We go from the event source fragment to the actual fragment. So just to pull that in. And this inherits from the event source one, and it just adds these kind of listeners and a binding context. So again, I'm going to copy this class. And I'm going to go across to here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in the stuff we need to pull in. Just using resharper to pull those in. And obviously what we want to inherit from here is our map fragment. And so this is going to be an MVX map fragment. Just to rename things. And at that point we've got an abstract base class that we can use for binding. So let me put that into its own class as well, its own file, sorry. And we've got the event source one. And you can see that we now have got this MVX map fragment. And so now finally what we can do is we can actually inherit from it. So we're going to inherit my map fragment, and that's going to be from the general MVX map fragment, and we'll put that in its own class as well. So there are a couple of steps there. It is a little bit confusing, I'll give you that. It's a little bit to learn and understand. But basically all we're doing is we're adding some events, basically dispose, create, destroyed and attached. We're adding these event hooks, and then we're adding binding context in the next layer up. So this is just adding kind of the data context that will be used for binding. I hope that's not too complicated. And then in my map fragment, we can actually add the code that's going to be specific for this particular case. Right, so now we've got that. For this fifth view, what we want to do is we want to use this map fragment, and we want to be able to hook in some binding to it. And the binding here is going to be a two-way binding for the current location for the map. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to override the onCreateView method, which is, if you know the life cycle of a fragment, is called quite up front. It's called when you're as the start part of your fragment, if you like, on its life cycle. And what I'm going to do is there's a bit of complicated code in here to do, just to make sure we actually do get the thing working. But basically I'm going to return whatever Google Maps creates for me. But in the middle, I'd like to create some binding. So let me just, I only want to create this binding once. So if anyone tries to reuse this, I don't want additional bindings added. So I'm going to put a flag in. And what I'll do here is I will just say, create binding. And I do know that in order to create the binding, I do need the inflator. So again, there's some hidden logic going on here. This is quite deep. But hopefully as you follow through you'll understand some of this. And what I'm going to do in the create binding is, first of all, I'll check if I'm bound already, then don't need to do anything here, so I can just return. Otherwise what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've got a binding context, that it's been created. So I will call something called ensure binding context is set. And this is an extension method. And it's the thing that requires the inflator. Yeah, so that's just the thing that's there in order for us to do our binding. And with that done, we can then actually create some bindings. So I'll create delay ones, delay bind, which won't actually get called until the first data context is set. And what I'm going to do is the normal sort of thing, which is going to be var set equals this dot create binding set, and this is going to go from so this is called my map fragment, to a fifth view model. And obviously the last thing you always do with a set is apply it. And what we want to do in here is we want to do two-way binding. So we want to bind the location of the map to the location of let me just get this right. We want to bind the location of the map to the location that's hidden within the map fragment, within the view model. So what we need to do is we're going to actually bind this itself. We're not going to use another object here or anything. We could, I guess, use another object, but we're just going to do it here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a property, which is going to be called private. It's going to be a lat long. It's one of those, and it's going to be called center. And so what I can access here is return map.cameraPosition. Is this the way we did it last time? It's projection we used to get the center last time. Map.projection.visibleRegion.center. No, not visible region. What did we use a moment ago in fourth view? We used, I'm sure there are other ways, latlongbounds.center, of course. Why didn't I remember that? Okay, so that's going to be how our center is done, and we have to return that. And in the set, what I'd like to do is I would like to set the center, which again we had code for before. So let me just do that. So again in fourth view we had it, and we decided we were going to do the center like this. Obviously we don't have map, we have map now. So that's going to be our center code. We'd also like to fire though when this projection changes, when we get our center. So to do that, we can just do we can add an event just using the naming convention. Center changed. And then what we need to do is know when to fire that event. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to have a callback on the map. So what I'm going to do is, if we've never bound before, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bind here to map.cameraChange plus equals, and I'm just going to create the map on camera change function. There's probably an override I could have used as well, but for here this just is what we want to do. And just to make sure that we never have any problems, I'm also going to set that bound flag to true. Again, if you're not reusing your fragments, it shouldn't be a problem, but if you are, then you only want to create these bindings and these hooks once. So here we get our map camera changed event args.p0 will probably give us something to do with our center. But all we really need to do is we need to just get hold of that center changed, and we just need to raise it as an event. So I'm going to do that, and raise is a extension method, which checks whether it's null first, so it's quite safe. And that is actually our fragment done, except I forgot to do the binding. So the binding itself is set.bind, and we're binding this. We're binding it for well, it's the view.center, and we're binding it to the view models vm.location. So that's going to be our binding. We've got this map fragment here, so we're going to just use it. So let's go to our 5th view model. We haven't created the XML for it, so I'll copy the 4th one, rename it to 5th. And what we need to do in here is we want to use a mapit.droids.views.mymap fragment. So let me just copy that and go back to the XML. So the fragment we're going to use this time isn't one of these guys, it's one of these guys. So mapit.droid.views.mymap fragment. And just because I know that Android's a bit fussy about this, I'm going to make those first things lowercase and just leave the class as uppercase. Hopefully that'll work. I may need to go back and change that again if I've got it wrong. Hopefully I haven't. And then what we can do is we just need one big text thing at the top, and this is going to be text for location. And hopefully I'm then almost there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create my 5th view. So Control C, Control V. Here's my 5th view. And so in my 5th view, again, I just need to rename things. Doesn't want to rename it. Oh, it's because it's not a thing. So Control Shift F. No, Control H. I'm going to replace 4th with 5th. Everywhere in this file, replace them all. And what I'm going to do is, I don't know now I need to get a map fragment out. I need to get a my map fragment. And what I need to do is I need to do map fragment dot view model equals view model. So I'm just going to set it. And then this 5th thing doesn't need any binding at all in there. I don't need this nested class for center helper here. And hopefully you can see, I don't need this center helper at the top either. Hopefully you can see that, it's simplified it because it's made the my map fragment look after its own binding now. So with that done, shall we see whether that builds and runs? I don't think I forgot anything. Just check the 5th view model. Yep, that should all be alright. So I'm going to build and run it, see whether it goes, and we'll switch over to the other computer. Oh, no, I did miss one. Raise requires a method, so an argument of this, but hopefully that was it. So debug, start new. And I'll see you over on the other camera on the tablet. Okay, so here's the tablet, and now we should be able to do number 5. And you can see we've got a thing up. Now, if I start to move this, oops. No, I've got an unhandled exception, so I'm going to need to go over to the PC and see what that is, so I will see you over there. So finally I've managed to get a demo that doesn't work today, and it's saying that there's an exception, and the exception is what's it saying? So this, the event handler should be okay, and what is the exception? I think so is it saying that it's because I didn't subscribe successfully? Let me just see. So it's a problem in my week event subscription, which will teach me a lesson for using them. But let me just see what the problem is. I am guessing that I haven't saved something. So let me just see. So this is a problem within the binding layer somewhere. It's a problem with center changed. I'm using my map, that shouldn't be a problem. Now let me just take a closer look. So if I go in and I look at $exception, then does it tell me anything about what this exception is? Or have I lost it? No, it's not telling me, so I may have to go through a debug cycle again. Yeah, okay, so I may have lost what the exception was, unfortunately. Let me just see. So it's telling me here that there was a problem with converting. So I'm wondering if I haven't applied the conversion correctly. Location cannot be applied to target type model.lat_long. Okay, let me just see. Did I do anything odd? So center is a lat_long and location is a location. So I forgot to use my value converter. It's very simple. Right, so let me come out of this run. So the problem was with a problem with the value conversion. And so what I can do is apply the value conversion that I've been using all along, which is a new location to lat_long value converter null, and then hopefully that should run back across on the device. So sorry about that, it was kind of confusing, but if you actually looked at the error trace, it told you what was going wrong. So I'm going to run it again, debug start new, and I'll see you back over on the device when hopefully this time it will work. Okay, so back on the device, let's try number 5. And see what happens. Right, so that looks a bit more hopeful in terms of where it's centered. Let's move the map. Oops. Something's going wrong again. Not sure what that is though, because that shouldn't really be coming up. Let me just see what's happening on the PC. Have I hit another debug? Yeah. So let me take a look again back on the PC. Okay, so we've hit the same problem, but let's just see if this time if we've got a $exception. So this time it's saying that there's a problem with the event, and it's saying it's a problem with the mapper on camera change, which we know about, and the inner exception saying there's no such method as getCenter. Okay, so the problem would seem to be here that actually it's a problem on this get that seems to be the problem. Right, so let's try a different approach here, and let's try using Stack Overflow again and working out what the right way of getting the center of the map is. So that should be easy enough to do. And in fact, we kind of know it, don't we? We kind of know So let me just actually do this. So we know that the lat long is going to be a center. So private lat long underscore center. So what I'm going to do is here I'm going to return underscore center. When I set it, I'm going to do center. Oops. Underscore center equals value. And when the user changes it, I'm also going to use center. So here somewhere, underscore center equals camera changed event args P0. And here I should be able to do, so I've got target, I've got describe content. Somewhere here must be target, is it? No. So here's a latitude and longitude. Let me just take a look at what camera change event args are. So to do that, I'll go to Stack Overflow. And in fact, I'm not going to Stack Overflow, I'm going to the official location. So it says the target is the location. So presumably, target is actually going to be the center. So I'll just use that, that should be okay. So what I'll do is that center equals target. That's a lat long. And that hopefully will get us away from this problem we're at the moment. So let's just do that. It was nothing to do with weak references, sorry, it was nothing to do with those. It was purely that code that I was using was a bit dodgy to get the center. So if this works, then I may have to retrofit it back to the other sample. So let's run again, and hopefully I'll see you over for a more successful demo. Okay, so back again to try fifth for another go. So we'll hit 5, and I don't know why the keyboard's coming up. Must be to do with focus. And now if we scroll it, then we get the effect we were looking for. So now you can see as we zoom and pinch and do other things, or I can't zoom that way, but as I scroll around, the center is updated at the top. So I hope that, didn't put you off too much, but this is another way of doing it. So, putting the binding inside the fragment makes it more reusable, doesn't mean your code goes in the activity, and just gives you the option to use it. So I'll go back to the PC to finish up. Okay, so sorry about problems there with, me messing up with my center. You do have to look up the arguments and work out how you're going to use the map. You can't hack away quite as freely as I did before. But I hope overall we've gone through 5 steps there, and we've reused, all of our same view models as we did in the as we used for iOS, and we now have the same app running in Droid. We've used some collection classes. I introduced you a bit more depth about how we're using them. I also, a little bit more complicated, showed you how to build up a bindable fragment from a third-party fragment if you need to. And it is just boilerplate code. It is just cut and pasting these kind of event source fragment, and then on top of that, the bindable fragment, and then on top of that, your fragment code. And it is a bit fiddly to work this out if you are going to reuse the fragments. But overall, it's pretty straightforward to do, I hope. And I will try and do a few more demos using fragments in the coming days. And also, James has been enlightening me with all sorts of things, and so has Cheese Baron, so is Thomas, with, drawers and horizontal things and sliding out hamburger menus and the view pager. So, there's a lot to play with and a lot to learn in fragments, so I'll be quite interested to see how that goes. Okay, so that is the end of n equals 41. Apologies for a few small bugettes in there, but I hope overall, you can see that we have gone from the iOS maps to the Android maps. Both of them share the same core code, and you can use that in your UIs without too much effort to actually update them. Hope that gives you some clues, and yeah, that's the end of maps. I don't think I'll go on to do the Windows ones. They're kind of already well documented about how to use those with binding. So that's the end of it. I hope that's cool, and I will see you in the next N+1. That's it for now.